Chosen one, stop scrolling. Something inside you already knows this message is for you. You've outgrown the spaces that once hurt you. You've risen beyond the vibrations that used to pull you down, and the truth is simple: they can't reach you anymore. There was a time when their words pierced your heart, when their opinions shaped your identity, when their doubt made you question your purpose. But that season is over. Something shifted, heaven moved, and you awakened. You didn't just distance yourself, you transcended. Your spirit outgrew the cage they tried to keep you in. Your energy no longer responds to the frequency of pain, jealousy, or control. You are no longer accessible to what once drained you. Listen closely, because what I'm about to say will resonate deep in your soul. The moment you chose alignment over approval, the moment you chose purpose over comfort, the moment you stepped into your calling, the bridge between you and your past burned itself. Awakening from the world they tried to keep you in. You always felt different, quiet, observant, awake in a world that loved distractions. While they chased noise, you searched for meaning. While they followed the crowd, you followed the voice within. They called you distant, cold, mysterious, but you were never disconnected. You were evolving. You felt the pull of something higher, something divine, something sacred only a few ever feel in this lifetime. Being chosen was never about superiority. It was about responsibility, a deeper awareness, a sharper vision, a heart that sees beyond illusions. And once your spirit wakes up, nothing returns to how it was. They sensed your awakening before you fully understood it yourself. That's why they tried to silence you, mock you, doubt you, because they feared what they could not control. The real reason they can't touch your energy now. Chosen one, the moment your frequency shifted, the spiritual doors around you sealed. The access they once had expired. Their manipulation stopped working. Their gossip stopped affecting you. Their presence no longer holds power. You stopped reacting. You stopped explaining. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit inside their comfort zones. And that silence terrified them, because it meant you healed. People don't lose access to you when you become distant. They lose access when you become aware. Awareness breaks chains. Awareness ends cycles. Awareness exposes intentions. You didn't change. You returned to your true self, and that version of you cannot be reached by those who refuse to grow. The signs: you are a chosen soul. You feel things deeply, energies, intentions, hidden motives behind smiles and words. Your intuition speaks loudly, and life confirms it again and again. You attract isolation before transformation. You walk alone before you walk in purpose. You experience heartbreak before alignment. These moments don't break you, they refine you. You are guided even when confused, protected even when unaware, elevated even when exhausted, doors close because better ones are assigned to you. And deep inside, you always knew you were meant for something greater than survival. You were meant for awakening. Why society tried to silence you? Society fears the awakened, because awakened souls cannot be controlled. You don't believe every narrative. You don't follow every system. You question, you observe, you seek truth. They wanted you distracted, numb, dependent on validation, but you chose clarity, you chose alignment, you chose God's whisper over the world's noise. You broke generational patterns without even realizing it. You healed wounds older than your lifetime. You stood where others fell, and heaven took notice. That's why your path felt heavy, because your calling was never ordinary. You are now in a different realm of growth. Your silence is power now. Your peace is strength. Your presence is protection. You no longer chase energy, you attract alignment. The people who lost you didn't lose access to your life. They lost access to your spirit, and only those aligned with your purpose will ever walk beside you again. You are evolving in ways they cannot understand, and that's okay. Your journey is sacred, your growth is divine, your path is protected. Chosen one, this new version of you is untouchable. This is your confirmation. Keep rising. Keep trusting your path. Keep honoring your calling. You were never meant to stay where your soul no longer belongs. They can't reach you anymore because you're not where they left you. If this message spoke to your spirit, let your voice be heard in the comments. Tell me what part resonated with your journey. Like this video, so more chosen ones can find their awakening. And subscribe to Chosen Wave because your transformation is only beginning, and there is so much more your soul is ready to hear. When your spirit outgrows their dimension, there comes a moment when your soul no longer responds to the old emotional triggers. The same conversations feel empty. The same environments feel heavy. The same people feel unfamiliar. It's not rejection, it's elevation. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because your spirit stopped resonating. Growth shifted your frequency. Purpose refined your energy. And suddenly, their presence no longer matched your destiny. They can't reach you now because you don't exist in the same emotional plane anymore. You've stepped into clarity, into truth, into divine awareness. And awareness is a realm many refuse to enter. They still operate from ego. You now operate from spirit. They speak from wounds. You speak from wisdom. They chase validation. You chase alignment. And that difference alone created a separation no bridge can repair. The spiritual battle you faced in silence. Chosen one, nobody truly knows how many silent battles you fought. The nights you cried and still chose faith. The moments you broke but still stood. The storms you faced without asking for sympathy. You weren't just fighting situations, you were fighting energies, old patterns, generational cycles, emotional wounds passed from soul to soul. You were chosen because you were strong enough to confront what others avoided. Every time life tried to break you, it awakened you. Every betrayal made you wiser. Every loss made you sharper. Every setback activated your inner warrior. And slowly, your spirit transformed. That's why they can't stand your strength now. They remember the version of you that doubted, begged, and tolerated. But that version no longer exists. You buried that self the day you chose self-respect over acceptance. When God removed you for your protection. Some connections didn't fade, they were spiritually removed. Some doors didn't close, they were divinely sealed. Some people didn't leave, they were escorted out of your destiny. You didn't lose relationships, you were extracted from danger. You didn't lose opportunities, you were redirected toward purpose. You didn't lose acceptance, you were positioned for alignment. God saw conversations you couldn't hear, intentions you couldn't see, energy you didn't recognize, and He moved you before the damage reached your soul. Now they try to reach you, but nothing connects. Because heaven placed spiritual distance where emotional distance failed, and that protection cannot be undone. Your energy now speaks before you ever say a word. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because of arrogance but because of awareness. Your presence carries truth. Your silence carries authority. Your energy carries remembrance of what you survived. Some people feel inspired when they meet you. Others feel uncomfortable, not because you are intimidating, but because your authenticity exposes what they hide within themselves. Your spirit mirrors their unhealed parts. Your growth reminds them of where they refuse to evolve. Your peace reveals the chaos they still cling to. So instead of growing, they label you different. But you are not different, you are awakened. And awakening is something the sleeping world rarely understands. The loneliness that led to transformation. Before elevation came isolation. Before clarity came confusion. Before strength came heartbreak. You didn't just grow, you were refined through solitude. There were days when you questioned everything, when you didn't recognize yourself anymore, when you felt detached from the old world but not yet grounded in the new one. That in-between space was your rebirth. In that silence, you met yourself. You faced your fears. You confronted your shadow. You learned to sit with your emotions instead of running from them, and that inner confrontation unlocked your true identity. Now your soul is grounded, your spirit is anchored, your heart beats with purpose, and the version of you that once needed validation no longer lives here. Your purpose was never meant to be understood by them. Some people were never meant to understand your calling. They operate through logic, your path moves through spirit. They seek proof, you move through faith. They chase approval, you follow divine direction. They judged your decisions because they couldn't see your vision. They questioned your silence because they couldn't hear your intuition. They doubted your journey because they couldn't feel your assignment. But purpose doesn't request permission. Destiny doesn't wait for acceptance. And calling doesn't shrink to fit anyone's comfort zone. You didn't leave them behind. Your purpose simply outgrew their expectations. You now attract souls that match your frequency. Because you healed, your connections changed. Because you awakened, your circle transformed. You no longer resonate with chaos, gossip, drama, or emotional instability. Now you attract depth, peace, honesty, souls who value truth, people who speak from the heart, spirits who understand energy instead of questioning it. These new connections don't drain you, they align with you. They don't compete with you, they grow with you. They don't silence your voice, they honor your purpose. This is the realm you were meant to reach all along, and the old world can no longer enter it. The shift that happens when you stop chasing energy. There was a time when you over-explained yourself, when you tried to prove your worth, when you chased connections that never valued your presence, but awakening changed that. You stopped begging to be seen. You stopped fighting to be understood. You stopped shrinking your truth just to make others comfortable, and that silent shift changed everything. The moment you chose peace over attachment, your spirit detached from what never deserved you. The moment you chose alignment over approval, access to you was spiritually revoked. You didn't become cold, you became conscious, and consciousness made you unreachable to energies that once fed on your kindness. The weight of being different your entire life. You never fit in, even as a child. You observed instead of blending in. You sensed things others ignored. You felt emotions deeper than words could explain, and for years you wondered why. People misunderstood your silence. They mistook your sensitivity for weakness. They questioned your distance without realizing you were protecting your spirit from noise you couldn't tolerate. You carried wisdom beyond your years. You carried pain you never spoke about. You carried strength you didn't know you possessed until life forced you to use it. Being different wasn't a curse. It was the first sign that you were chosen. The spiritual cost of awakening. Awakening didn't come peacefully. It came with heartbreak, confusion, loss, identity shift. It stripped away everything fake, everything fragile, everything built on illusion. You outgrew habits. You outgrew environments. You outgrew versions of yourself that survived but never truly lived. And that internal shedding felt painful but necessary. There were days you felt like you were falling apart, but in truth, you were shedding old timelines, old attachments, old versions of your soul that no longer aligned with who you were becoming. Growth demanded sacrifice, and the price of awakening was the life you once thought you needed. How your presence triggers the unhealed. You don't do much, you simply exist. Yet your authenticity unsettles people who hide behind masks. Your calmness exposes their chaos. Your truth confronts their denial. They feel intimidated not because you're loud, but because you're real. They sense depth in you, strength in you, spiritual authority in you, and instead of respecting it, they resist it. So they distance themselves. They gossip. They project. They misjudge you. But none of it reaches you anymore because their perception no longer has power over your identity. Your presence is a mirror, and some people simply aren't ready to face their reflection. The calling that pulled you out of your old life. You didn't change randomly. Something inside began calling you. A quiet pull, a spiritual nudge, a knowing that whispered there is more than this. You felt disconnected from places that once felt familiar. You felt uneasy around energies that once felt normal. It wasn't depression. It was redirection. It was your soul preparing for evolution. Opportunities stopped aligning. Relationships stopped flowing. Doors began closing, not because you were failing, but because your path was shifting beyond that chapter. Destiny doesn't shout, it whispers, and you were wise enough to listen. You no longer fight for your place in people's lives. There was a time you tried to hold everything together. You fought to prove your loyalty. You stayed longer than your spirit wanted to. You tolerated more than you deserved, just to avoid being misunderstood. But awakening rewired your heart. You stopped forcing conversations. You stopped chasing closure. You stopped proving your worth to people who never valued it. Now, if someone falls away, you let them. If a connection fades, you release it. If energy shifts, you honor it. Because you finally understand what is meant for your soul does not require struggle. And that acceptance made you untouchable. When your silence becomes your greatest power. There was a time when you reacted to everything. You defended yourself. You argued. You explained. You wanted people to understand your heart. But now, you've outgrown all of that. Your silence no longer comes from weakness, it comes from wisdom. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your response. Not every situation requires your presence. Silence protects your peace. Silence guards your spirit. Silence keeps your frequency untouched by chaos. And the moment you chose silence over conflict, your soul elevated. Now they speak, but their words don't reach you. They provoke, but your spirit does not respond, because your peace is louder than their noise. The moment you stopped seeking validation. You used to crave reassurance, approval, recognition. You wanted someone to say, "You're doing great, you're enough, you're valued." But awakening taught you something powerful. You learned to validate yourself. You learned to recognize your own worth. You learned that your value isn't measured by acceptance, but by alignment. You stopped performing for attention. You stopped bending for love. You stopped compromising your truth just to feel included. And the moment you chose yourself, your spirit broke free. That's why you stand differently now. That's why you walk with quiet confidence. Because your worth no longer depends on people. It is rooted in something higher. When your vibration exposes hidden intentions, the more your spirit awakened, the more truth revealed itself. Masks slipped. Attitudes changed. People you once trusted began revealing their true nature without saying a word. Conversations felt different. Energy felt heavier. Smiles felt rehearsed. And suddenly you could sense intentions before actions. You could read emotion before words. This wasn't paranoia, it was discernment. A spiritual gift awakened through experience. A deeper awareness given to those who walk with purpose. Now, instead of confronting people, you simply distance yourself. You no longer argue with energy. You just stop entertaining it. The season where everything felt like a test. Before elevation, everything around you felt unstable. Relationships shook. Finances shifted. Emotions fluctuated. Life felt uncertain, almost like the ground beneath you was moving. Nothing made sense, yet everything had meaning. You were being stretched, refined, prepared. Every challenge built spiritual strength. Every delay strengthened faith. You weren't being punished. You were being transformed. You were being detached from what could not walk with you into your next chapter. And when the storm settled, you were no longer the same soul who entered it. You are no longer available for low-vibration experiences. You don't entertain drama anymore. You don't stay in situations that drain your peace. You don't tolerate manipulation, gossip, or emotional chaos. Your time became sacred. Your energy became selective. Your presence became intentional, and that shift alone made you unreachable to anyone operating from ego or insecurity. Now, instead of explaining your boundaries, you simply live them. Instead of announcing your growth, you embody it. Instead of proving your value, you radiate it. And those who cannot meet you at your level can no longer access you. The difference between who you were and who you are now. The old you sought approval. The awakened you seeks alignment. The old you wanted to be liked. The awakened you wants to be authentic. The old you tolerated pain. The awakened you honors peace. You stopped betraying yourself just to keep others comfortable. You stopped ignoring your intuition just to maintain connections. You stopped sacrificing your soul for temporary companionship. Now you choose yourself, not out of ego, but out of necessity, because your spirit understands that your destiny requires a stronger version of you. And that version no longer lives in the places your past self used to exist. When your spirit no longer seeks familiar pain. There was a time when you kept returning to the same environments, the same cycles, the same people, not because they were good for you, but because they felt familiar. Pain felt normal. Chaos felt comfortable. Dysfunction felt like home. But awakening rewired your soul. You began to feel uncomfortable in places where your spirit once hid. You started noticing the emotional weight behind conversations. You started recognizing the cost of staying where you were no longer growing. Your spirit stopped craving familiarity and started craving peace. Your heart stopped chasing what hurt and started seeking what healed. And that internal shift quietly closed doors you never had the strength to close before. Now you no longer mistake pain for loyalty. You no longer sacrifice yourself for belonging. You no longer bleed to keep connections alive. And because of that, they can't reach you anymore. The moment your heart chose healing over attachment. Healing wasn't just about letting go of people. It was about letting go of versions of yourself that tolerated what you didn't deserve. You had to confront why you stayed, why you accepted less, why you ignored your intuition. You faced your inner wounds. You confronted abandonment fears. You healed childhood echoes that told you love must hurt, attachment must ache, and sacrifice must silence your voice. That deeper healing changed everything. You stopped chasing emotional crumbs. You stopped romanticizing struggle. You stopped confusing attachment with connection. Now your heart recognizes alignment. Your spirit recognizes peace. Your intuition recognizes truth. And no one who operates from emotional chaos can enter the place your soul now lives. When your growth becomes silent but powerful. You didn't announce your transformation. You didn't broadcast your healing. You didn't explain your distance. You simply evolved quietly, intentionally, spiritually. Your growth became internal before it became visible. It showed up in your choices, in your responses, in your emotional control, in the way you walked away without resentment. You no longer need to prove you've changed. Your energy reveals it. Your presence reflects it. Your boundaries speak louder than any explanation ever could. And those who once controlled your emotions now have no access to your frequency. You learned that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. You used to give your time freely, your love freely, your energy freely. You poured into people who never poured back. You supported people who never supported you. You showed up for those who disappeared when you needed them. Awakening taught you discernment. You learned that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. You learned that loyalty is shown through action, not words. You learned that not every connection is meant to walk your spiritual path with you. Now you choose presence over attachment. You choose respect over convenience. You choose mutual effort over empty promises. And the moment you raised your standards, the wrong people removed themselves. When your intuition becomes your true compass. There was a time you doubted your inner voice. You ignored red flags. You silenced your instincts. You trusted words more than energy. but experience became your teacher and intuition became your guide. Now you feel truth before you hear it. You sense danger before it unfolds. You recognize misalignment before it harms you. Your spirit speaks, and you listen. Intuition doesn't argue, it doesn't panic, it doesn't shout, it simply knows. And your journey strengthened that knowing. That wisdom keeps you protected. That awareness keeps you elevated. And that spiritual guidance keeps you beyond the reach of anyone who comes with hidden intentions. You no longer live in survival, you live in purpose. You spent years in survival mode, fighting, enduring, holding on, operating from fear, lack, and emotional exhaustion, but awakening shifted your existence from survival to purpose. You now make choices from clarity, not desperation, from vision, not fear, from alignment, not pressure. Your life is no longer about enduring, it is about evolving. Purpose gives direction. Purpose gives strength. Purpose gives you the courage to walk away from anything that threatens your peace. And when you stepped into purpose, every false connection fell away on its own. Chosen one, if this message resonated with your spirit, don't let it pass silently. Let your voice rise in the comments. Tell me, what part of your awakening do you feel the world still doesn't understand about you? Your story may awaken another soul who needs this truth. Tap like if this message strengthened your journey. Share it so more awakened souls can break free from the limits holding them back. And subscribe to Chosen Wave, because your transformation has only begun, and your spirit deserves every message meant to guide your destiny forward.